Hiya, I'm Bruce Fumi. In 2014, there was a referendum about Scotland becoming independent. At that time, I often heard people say that the UK was like a marriage. That metaphoric marriage was on the 1st of May 1707, but there were 7 actual marriages through the centuries that each brought us a step closer to that figurative marriage of the United Kingdom, and I'm going to count them down and explain why. If you're interested in the people, places and events in Scottish history, then click the subscribe button at the bottom right hand side of the screen at any time during this video. In the meantime, let me tell you 7 stories. So here's a countdown of the marriages that made the United Kingdom. We start 1,000 years ago in 1070 with Malcolm Canmore and Margaret Atheling. Margaret of Wessex, Saint Margaret, call her what you will. She's straight in at number 7. Da 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 da. Okay, pop piggers, let's just calm down. There are Canadians, Americans, Australians and young people who have no idea what just happened there. So let's go back to some historical marriages. Alright. 1057 was a seminal year in Scottish history, but most of you don't even realise it. It was the first step in the journey away from Celticness. It was the year Malcolm Canmore killed Macbeth. Now, I'm going to have to leave a link at the end to my video, Who Was the Real King Macbeth, so that you can find out all about it. Here's the thing though. I bet you all know what happened 9 years later in 1066. Yes, William of Normandy invaded England and defeated the Saxons at the Battle of Hastings. King Harold of England lost an eye and his life. I suppose we should prioritise. But the Saxons didn't just give up. They named a guy called Edgar Atheling as the rightful King of England. Then Edgar came north with his sister Margaret. Now, Margaret was going to marry God and become a nun. But Malcolm Canmore, the Scottish king, said, "How no marry me instead?" Well, what lady doesn't like a bit of sweet talking like that? Now, I think Malcolm saw an opportunity of being married to the sister of the ousted Saxon King of England when that Saxon king would have to go and fight for the throne against William the Conqueror. I could just see Malcolm saying, "You go for it, Edgar. Go and win back the English throne. Oh, and don't worry, if you don't make it back, I'll be making replacements with your sister." This marriage brought together Celtic Scotland and Saxon England. The unification ball was rolling. And Malcolm gave the first of his children in the marriage Saxon names, just in case. Now, the Scottish royal family may have united Celtic and Saxon, but England was becoming Norman. The Saxons never made that comeback, so Malcolm and Margaret gave their later children Norman names instead. And one of those children comes in at number 6. Da da da!
Stop it!
Sorry. At number 6, we have a marriage that is in a way almost a reversal of number 7. The Normans were now firmly in charge of England. William the Conqueror, he's dead. His 4th son was called Henry. Now, Henry is an elder brother, William Rufus, who succeeded their dad as the King of England. And in August 1100, when the 2 brothers were in the New Forest, elder brother was shot with an arrow in a nasty, accidental, suspiciously convenient hunting accident. Now, being Johnny on the spot, Henry claimed the crown before his other elder brother could complete the Brexit paperwork to get over from Normandy. Now, back in those days, the idea of primogeniture, where the eldest son always inherits the crown, wasn't as firmly established. But there was obviously still a potential for a bit of, "Oh, you, what do you think you're up to, manship?" So it would be good to get a bit of credibility with the recently conquered Saxons if only there was an eligible female who was the daughter of the previous Saxon royal family close by. Then Bob's your uncle, Edith's your wife, and there she was in Scotland. The hunting accident was on the 2nd of August, Henry's crowned on the 5th of August, and he's married Edith, daughter of Malcolm Canmore and Margaret, before the time the year's out. Now, I say her name's Edith, but to make an already confusing family tree even worse, she's also known as Matilda. I've once seen her written as Maud as well. So anyway, by the end of 1100, the King of England is the son of the conquering Norman William Guy. This English king's married to the sister of the reigning Scots king, and they're both children of the now dead Margaret, the vanquished Saxon English king's sister. Now, you might be thinking I'd be tempted to put in an incest joke there, but trust me, we're only at base camp. We've got a long climb ahead of us, and you're going to need oxygen tanks where we're going. So, Celtic and Saxon royal houses have been united in the Scots royal family. Now they were joined to the Normans through Matilda. But in a way, this marriage was more important not because of the bride, but because of her younger brother. David was the 8th child of Margaret and Malcolm, so he had no realistic prospect of becoming king of anything. He just bummed around, growing up in the Norman court, being known as the brother of the Queen, and becoming right-hand man to Henry I of England. No bad thing. Then, what do you know it? All his brothers die and no children. It's like finding a £10 note in an old codpiece. The new King of Scots was really a Norman English knight, and he brought more Norman knighty pals to Scotland with him. You might recognise some of the names. Bruce, Balliol, Wallace, Bissett, Boyle, Corbett, Hay, Kinnear, Graham, Mingus. Stop! See this name? It's pronounced Mingus. M-E-N-Z-I-E-S. Mingus. And Fraser. By the time David died, Scotland was a bit more Norman and a bit less Celtic, all because of marriage number 6. Now, it took a long time before our next significant marriage came along, 403 years to be precise. In 1503, we have at number 5, No! The marriage of James Stuart, James IV of Scotland, okay, and Margaret Tudor, the daughter of Henry VIII, daughter of Henry VII and sister of Henry VIII. I'm not going to go through the whole story because if you can't see the significance of this wedding, then I've conveniently made a whole video on the marriage of the Thistle, the Rose, and you know there's going to be a link at the end, right? Okay. Now, the point is that she comes over to this side, and the wedding brings the United Kingdom much closer, and things only speed up from here. We don't have to wait another 400 years for the next wedding. In fact, 62 years later, at number 4, I know. In 1565, we have Mary Queen of Scots and Henry Lord Darnley. Now, I'm going to assume that you've all heard of Mary Queen of Scots, the granddaughter of Margaret Tudor and James IV, and the daughter of James V. But we're now in the foothills of incestuous royalty. So let me tell you about our second husband, Henry Lord Darnley. You see, when King James IV was killed at Flodden fighting against Henry VIII, his wife's brother, Margaret Tudor, remarried. And her daughter from that marriage was Margaret Douglas. Now, she was the mother of Henry Lord Darnley, who was also a Stuart on his dad's side. You were only supposed to blow the bloody doors off. This is from the Italian Job. Right, so Mary Queen of Scots, the granddaughter of Margaret Tudor and James Stuart, married Henry Lord Darnley, the grandson of Margaret Tudor and also a Stuart. I'm just saying, even Tinder's got rules. So Mary and Henry have a son, James VI, and that's not the number of his fingers. Stop it. Anyway, the point is that Elizabeth of England, she doesn't marry. So in 1603, when she dies, James VI of Scotland becomes James I of England. Now that's not it. People get mixed up. For the next 100 years, apart from a wee head choppy bit mid-century when James's son Charles I, right, Scotland and England have got the same king, but they're two separate countries with two separate parliaments. The union of parliaments hasn't happened yet. It's just the union of the crowns. right? One guy, two crowns. In fact, this was the beginning of the American colonization in Jamestown, where Native Americans called him Jimmy Two Hats. I'll be honest, there has been some disagreement amongst the academic community about the veracity of that. But anyway, my children tell me that there's a lot of information for people to follow in this video and that folk are going to need a bit of a halftime break. So here's a picture of a cat. Number 3. In 1673, we have the marriage of James, Duke of York, and Mary of Modena. Again, my kids have told me that I need to make this bit clear, so remember, James the 6th and 1st, Jimmy Two Hats, right? We know his son Charles I got his head chopped off, but he had two sons that concern us, King Charles II and James, Duke of York. Now, the Duke of York is the second son of the monarch in the English system. Now, after his first wife died, James, Duke of York, married Mary of Modena. This in itself did nothing to unite the kingdoms. In fact, it did more to split them apart. You see, by this stage, both Scotland and England were both Protestant, but James had reverted to Catholicism, and now he's only gone and married a Catholic wife. Oh no! Now, this marriage wouldn't have been significant but for two facts. Number one, James's two surviving children from his first marriage, whilst Protestant, were females, Mary and Anne. Secondly, his brother Charles II died without legitimate heirs. When that happened, James's second marriage became crucial to the development of the United Kingdom, because it was the son born of that marriage that caused all hell to break loose in an explosion of Jacobite tartan that eventually led to the book Outlander. Oh, there's a point. How many folk that watch my videos have read the Outlander books? Go and tell me in the comment section below. I'll leave a link to the first Outlander book in the description for anyone that's not read them, right? If you like a bit of soft porn for women, like in a kilt and that. Anyway, if the 1673 marriage of James to Mary of Modena was critical in having James ousted from the still separate thrones of Scotland and England, then in at number 2 we have the marriage of William of Orange to James's daughter Mary, 4 years later in 1677. Now, in 1688, James and Mary of Modena have their son and baptise him a Catholic. You can check out my video, Jacobite Rebellion, or was it? 7 English parliamentarians wrote to William of Orange to ask him to come and invade and take over for the now raving Catholic James VII. Or second, depending on which of the two countries you're in. Right? So why William of Orange? Because William and his wife, James's daughter Mary, were both Protestant. And they were both grandchildren of James's dad, Charles I. We're now at a level of incest where sex between husband and wife could only produce clones. Now, whilst legal attempts to pass the crown to Dolly the sheep on their death were ratified in Aberdeen and large parts of Wales, most of England insisted that the crown pass to Mary's sister Anne. Thus, at number 1, in 1683 we have the marriage that is most crucial to the union between Scotland and England, yet I predict the one about which people know least. Now, there are lots of knowledgeable people watch my videos, far too knowledgeable if you ask me, but I wonder, if I asked the question, who was the husband of Queen Anne, I bet few, if any, would know the answer. Who was the husband of the Queen of Sheba? Huh? Let me know in the comment section below. And be honest, did you know it was George of Denmark? That's Anne, not the Queen of Sheba. Tell me, genuinely, I'm interested. Right? I think the reason that nobody knows is the significance of this marriage to the United Kingdom isn't the husband. The thing that's significant is that of Anne's 17 pregnancies. Yes, 17 pregnancies, which must have left her very little time to get pregnant. Anyway, of the 17 pregnancies, 12 resulted in miscarriages or stillbirths. That must be so depressing. All but one son, George, died before the age of 2, and he died at 11. Can you imagine that? Anne was Queen of England. She was also Queen in Scotland, but she would be the last of the Stuart monarchs. And it was this succession crisis that finally brought the union between Scotland and England. You see, England wasn't prepared to have Scotland on their northern border choose their own monarch on Anne's death. This might provide a backdoor to the French. And that's why an incorporating union to create the United Kingdom had to be pushed through at all costs, against the will of both the Scottish and the English populace. Of course, this is a big subject of debate just now. I don't know when you're watching this, but as I speak in November 2020, opinion polls suggest that a majority of Scots want Scotland to be on friendly terms, although separate from England. But nobody asks the English, and the Prime Minister won't permit it anyway. That's not much different from 1707. But here's a thought. Remember wedding number 4 back in 1565 between Mary Queen of Scots and Henry Lord Darnley? That was Mary's second marriage. Her first marriage to Francis II of France hadn't resulted, if it hadn't resulted in her widowhood, right? If they'd gone on to produce children and progeny down the centuries right through to today, we Scots would be part of France. Imagine that for a minute. If France had benefited from a union with Scotland over the last 300 years instead of England, maybe France would have ruled the waves, won the Battle of Trafalgar, won the Americas, built an empire on which the sun never set. And today, the world would be speaking French instead of English. And we Scots would probably be demanding independence from France. It's just a thought. If you want to watch the video, Who's the Real King Macbeth, it should be on the screen now. If you're interested in the video, The Marriage of the Thistle and the Rose, then you can watch that too. You can even watch The Jacobite Rebellion, or Was It? Hope you enjoyed this. Spread the word, give it a thumbs up. Hammy and Doc is going to be Lama alive. Cheerio and Drasta.